so many of us that miss him. There are so many of us that are at a loss without him.
A guilty verdict for the man on trial for killing an Austin police officer. Just 1 hour is all it took for a jury to convict Brandon Daniel of murdering Officer Jaime Padron.
Even without much suspense, the verdict still brought sighs of relief from Padron's family and his fellow police officers. But it was only step one. KXAN's Chris Sadeghi was there when the verdict was read at the courthouse, and there was not much surprise today.
No, not at all. Anything else would have been a huge surprise. Now, afterwards, one Austin police officer hugged another and whispered, "Part 1. Now, Part 2 could be a trickier question, but for now, the Padron family is celebrating the justice.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Brandon Daniel, guilty of the offense of capital murder.
No matter how obvious the outcome, those words were still reason to hug the person next to them and think about the person who couldn't be there.
About Jaime Padron, my friend, you made me start crying again, man. What a wonderful man. What a tragic event this was.
Matt Baldwin is a sergeant with San Angelo PD. He worked there 13 years with Jaime Padron. The day Padron died, Baldwin was the one who called the family.
There are so many of us that miss him. There are so many of us that are at a loss without him.
Brandon Daniel and his family remained stoic as if they also knew what was coming. The family on the other side of the courtroom found much of this trial and evidence too difficult to take.
They're very relieved that this portion of the trial is over with.
But the next portion won't have the foregone conclusion. The sentencing phase will determine if Daniel deserves the death penalty or life in prison. If the Padron family has a preference, they aren't revealing it yet.
So I just say that they're very pleased with the support of this community.
Including the 12 jurors who took little time delivering what was long anticipated. And that sentencing phase will begin at 9 o'clock Monday morning. That's the phase where Daniel's use of Xanax could become more scrutinized. We'll talk about that coming up at 6 o'clock. Shannon.
All right, Chris, thank you very much. When jurors consider next week what Chris was speaking about, whether to sentence Daniel to death, they're going to consider two questions. Number one, would Daniel be a future threat inside of prison? If that's yes, then question number two, are there any mitigating factors that should spare him the death penalty? If that answer is no, he'll be sentenced to death. Any other combinations of answers would mean life without parole.